So, welcome everyone to Time Isn't Up Mental Health Talks. Today we've got Nico, the absolute legend of an ex-England wicketkeeper, should I say, and current head coach of the CPL team in Antigua. Welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How are you doing? You
Thanks.
okay?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Carl. Great. Yeah, CPL, great fun. Just got back. Bit of jet lag, but wonderful time out there. Who can not have a great time in the West Indies? 7 weeks in the West Indies. Yeah. Antigua and Barbuda Falcons.
Lovely. It's you can tell you got the tan. You
Well, a
got
little bit. I'm peeling a little bit, but yeah. Nice day here today, actually, in England. So we're all right.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So first of all, thanks for coming on. I know you're extremely busy. You're heading off to America on Wednesday.
Yeah, off to Dallas, off to Texas for the National Cricket League out there, T10 competition. So 60 balls of carnage, 45 minutes each side. So yeah, it's a quick one. It's a bit like baseball in itself, I think. So
Yeah,
should be good. Should be good
no,
fun.
definitely. And obviously, you've just come from the Caribbean where it's lovely, hot. You know, the way of life's different out there. Back in the UK where it can be miserable weather, etc. And then you're going off to Dallas where it's going to be like 40 degrees over there.
Yeah, probably not quite that warm, but it's going to be warm again. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
certainly in the 30s, I thought. Yeah.
So how do you cope like going from place to place? Obviously, it must have a massive effect on obviously yourself, your marriage, like everything what comes with being a professional coach, but also you've had that in the past being a professional cricketer.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As a player, you're normally more settled, where as a coach, unless you're doing a county gig and you're day in, day out, or you're with one particular franchise, like a Delhi Capitals or a TKR, somebody who's traveling around the world in their own roadshow in 5 or 6 competitions, as a sort of my own business as a head coach, as it were. You go into different franchises, meeting new people, traveling the world, different time zones. Generally, you're building teams as well with the owners. So you're spending a bit of time, bit of preparation with analysis teams, captains, assistant coaches as well, trying to find out knowledge on local players. It's very different. I've just come back from the West Indies, so building up for that, I was speaking to Jeff Miller, the franchise CEO, Chris Prasad, a chap who owns it from America, a property billionaire from America, who's involved with fuel now as well in Guyana. He paid for the whole marina in Guyana for the boats to come in, the ships to come in. So yeah, meeting those guys beforehand, chatting through our strategy, what we're trying to find, players, budgets, pre little camps. So managing my missus, trying to keep everything happy at home, trying to keep daughter focused on A levels and on a netball games and matches that she's got coming up as well, and training. So yeah, there's always something to do. Dog walks, always something to do as well, Carl. So yeah, good fun.
Yeah, so how do you just divulge a little bit more into that? So how do you manage that? Because obviously you've got when you're at home, you need to de-stress, compartmentalize. Obviously, you've just done a massive tournament out there. So, you've been with some high profile players as well, and players who might demand more of your time or, to manage their needs. But then you're coming back to home life where obviously you've got a marriage, you've got the daughter who obviously A levels, her netball, and then you're going off again and you're managing a different set of players. How do you switch your mindset from each one?
Yeah, good question. I think I was quite lucky that I'd already been out to the Caribbean Premier League previously. So for me, I was working with the same CEO. I had Shakib Al Hassan, who was there as well, who just got his 500th wicket in T20 cricket the other week. Imad Wasim, who was going to be captain. So I'd been around those guys a lot in CPL previously. I've known them when they're around in England, playing 100, etc., in different tournaments.
Yeah.
So Shakib as well in Bangladesh Premier League. I've been out there before, so I knew those guys. I knew the owners. I knew the pitches, most of the pitches, and yeah, it was a case of just meeting the local lads, the West Indian lads who, some had just come out. Jaden Seals had just come out of playing for West Indies. Amir Django, who's a nice young player. Yeah, it was great to meet those guys. I'd spoken to Willow, my assistant coach, who's a great man who coaches out there locally. So he knew all the guys. So we're doing a lot of homework beforehand, really, a lot of prep. And even for me, looking at pictures of players who I've not met before for a few weeks beforehand, just to get to know them, so I can meet them. I can say, I generally put notes on my phone. Players' names, their wives or their girlfriends' names. So whenever somebody's name comes up, I always say, "Oh, how's such and such the missus or the family and whatnot." So little things like that that try and make us be as authentic and as natural when we're together as we can be, as soon as we can, because time's quick. You got to get going. You've got to hit the ground running. And we had a really tough schedule actually in our home games. We had the first home stint where we had like 5 or 6 games in literally 8-9 days. So it was really tough. And that heat as well, traveling backwards and forwards from the grounds, late nights. So your body clock is tough. That's the hardest bit, is the body clock, because West Indies 5 hours behind. So it was tough going out there. We had a few days out there, which helps. Generally, it's about an hour a day difference. So it takes 5 days to get in the swing of it. But then once you play late games, the adrenaline of matches, by the time you've finished, you're finishing at say 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. By the time man of the matches are done, press is done, clean up all the kit, the guys have food afterwards. We do debriefs either at the hotel or in the dressing room. So it's a long process. So you're back in after midnight. You don't sleep till 2-3 o'clock, sometimes 3:30 in the morning. So that's the toughest bit. Yeah.
So that hit me, obviously, where you said there, obviously, where you're going from here to over there, meeting new players. So back in January, I was out in Sri Lanka doing the PD Champions Trophy out there, head coaching for Sri Lanka. And it was a gig that came across like overnight, but didn't know anyone. So I had to quickly then switch focus and go bang, bang, bang. But the games came quick and fast. And, I was out of my depth massively, but it was a massive learning curve. And for me, it was challenging on the fact of the stress on the players, so their mental well-being, and telling somebody, sorry, you're not playing today, or you've not made the squad. That as a player, ex-player myself, knowing that when you get told you're not made the squad or you're not picked in, you're gutted anyway. But in a major tournament, how do you deal with that? And let's start probably back when you was a player, being told either in the squad or you've been selected for training camps or the squad or the team, and then being told, sorry, you're sitting out today, Nico.
Yeah, it was a really interesting one because I've been very fortunate. I'd played football, rugby and cricket as a kid up in the Lake District in a little village called Langwathby near Penrith. I'd had great sports masters at school who were a guy called Rick Martin and Mr. Newstead and some other great coaches who were coaching the county at the time as well. So I played football, rugby and cricket. Cricket was my better sport, my more natural sport. So I went with cricket, MCC, North of England schools for a couple of years, and then MCC based at Lords, and I came to Leicester in 1988. So I was really lucky that I'd always had a really positive start in my cricketing career. Being a young lad from the Lake District, I'd had so many people knew my dad because my dad played a local sport and he was a farmer and everybody knows everybody up there. So, Village Green, playing on the Village Green, playing our local cricket club non-stop, then playing junior stuff with county in England. I've met a lot of people by the time I was 16 and did a lot of traveling. So that helped me confidence-wise as a youngster. Then I had to go to London, to Lords. So from a little village to London, to living in a big hostel, 79 Fitzjohn's Avenue up in Hampstead, which was an amazing place. And a lot of the lads were there together. So all of a sudden it was now, living in the Big Brother house, which was cricket. So that was a tough challenge for me at times. As a kid, I battled a little bit with dyslexia at school. So my reading wasn't great. So that was always in the back of my mind how I was going to deal with it. So when I was younger, I had quite a lot of negativity in my mindset away from the pitch. But as soon as I stepped on the pitch, I always had great belief and always enjoyed getting in the battle and wanting to win the game for my side and myself. And it wasn't until I went to Leicestershire as a youngster that I realised how good I had to be, because my trial game was against Alan Donald at Leicestershire, and he bowled the speed of light, and I got a couple of 30s in the game and signed a 2-year contract. Mike Turner backed me, the late Mike Turner, who was a wonderful man, a CEO at Leicestershire for many years. So all of a sudden you're on the bottom of the ladder. You're this young superstar trying to make it in the game on this. Then you come to a club, and then all of a sudden you're the junior pro, and you might not get a bat in the nets. You're throwing balls to Peter Willey, David Gower, James Whittaker, Chris Lewis, Philip De Freitas. So you grabbed your practice when you could, and you did your best. I think what was fortunate for us as players and also for our mental health in those days, there was one coach, which was Ken Higgs at the time. Bobby Simpson came for a while, and he came in the second team for a while, which was amazing, from Australia, and brought a great intensity and a great belief. But we were backed a lot when we were younger. There was no social media. We were backed a lot. You'd sign, you would definitely sign a 2-3 year deal to start with, and then you had to really make a lot of mistakes not to sign another 2 or 3 year deal again. So there were bigger squads, but people backed you for longer. So that helped mentally, that you were there, you were playing, you knew you could have opportunities, you knew that you go well. And fortunately for me, Phil Whittaker got injured, the keeper, and I got a go, and I did well, and I got 100 against Hampshire, against a wonderful team, and Malcolm Marshall was there overseas, and I got 100 against those guys, and Nigel Bryce and the captains at the time really believed in me and backed me. So I was really lucky that he believed in me, and it was tough because the environment was very the opposite of what I've been used to. A very open, straight, everybody back everybody environment in the second team, great fun. Into the first team, which was much more high pressure. Youngsters were seen and not heard, and it was all about the senior players. And you were pushed away into a corner, and you were a bit of a golfer as well as a player as well. You were.
Yeah. So you touched on it there a little bit. Sorry, was where obviously social media these days is a massive impact on players, on what's said online, not just from a positive point of view, but obviously a negative point of view. Back then, there wasn't that. So obviously you had the papers, or if you turned on the news, if you was lucky enough to feature on BBC or ITV, etc. Back in the day.
Teletext.
Teletext.
Yeah.
And I think obviously how mental health is looked at now by the older generation compared to the lads who are playing, at this moment in time, I think you can't really compare as much because there wasn't the pressure of social media. The changing room atmosphere was different. Yes, you probably didn't want to talk as much in the changing room. Like you said, you had your place and you needed to know your place within the changing room. Like when I was in the army, we knew you had your role, you had your place within your section, your battalion, and you didn't really step over that line. If you did, then, you got put back in that place or you swiftly moved on. So you've done your playing career and you've gone into coaching. Now, obviously, I know you as a player, as a coach, and you was at Leicester. You worked miracles at Leicester. Obviously, you coached one of my mates, Aaron, over there as well. And I know the great work you did there. But obviously, then that came with a lot of pressure from social media, from news, etc. How did you cope from that point of view?
As a player, it was you dreaded dropping a catch and hearing about it, or the world hearing about it the next day. I didn't enjoy that. My character type is about keeping people happy. On the disc profile, I'm a high I, so I'm a high I on the disc profile, and that's about people. So I'm very people focused, and orientated. So I didn't want to let other people down, family and friends as well, who backed me all the way. So when I was a coach, and I was looking at it as a player, I played a lot, and I was backed a lot. So I never really. It was only right at the very end of my career that I had the difficulties of not playing in games because I was getting older. I was 40 years old. I played till I was 40, a month before my 42nd birthday on T20 finals day. So I'd played a lot, and it was the transition of not playing 4-day cricket to only 1-day cricket to only T20 cricket. And Tim Boone at the time handled that brilliantly for me and said, listen, at some time, Nico, we're going to have to say you're not going to keep wicket. The body's, you might be able to bat for a bit longer, but your body's not going to be able to do it day in, day out. Your reflexes, your sharpness, back-to-back days, back-to-back games. And he was so right. And I trusted and believed in Tim. His communication was that good that he was right. And I knew he was right because he was doing it for the right reasons for me, but also for the club. So that transition was really safe and secure for me in a way. And I tried to take that into my coaching. I learned a lot from Tim Boone, who's away in Sri Lanka now, actually, with the women's team. Ex-Yorkshire, did a lot with England as well. And he's a great man, does a lot of coach mentoring. And I learned a lot from Tim, and I still speak to him regularly now. And I try to take that into my coaching because for me, one of the hardest things is, like yourself, is actually letting a player know that he's not going to play. And it's harder, and I hate it. There's a couple of things I hate. I hate obviously sacking people, sacking players. It's tough. It's very tough. At the time, also, when you're in that, say, in a Leicestershire job or a longer term job where you're hiring and fire people after appraisals and whatnot, it's a little bit easier in some ways because you're doing appraisals. People know where they're standing by the time they're going to get released. Their numbers aren't stacking up, or behaviours aren't stacking up, or lifestyle's not stacking up. There's things going on. So for me, having that process ticked off and those boxes, that helps me mentally get over sitting down with somebody, looking in the eyes and saying, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to offer you a new contract. It's still tough, but they know what's coming generally. Because it's been built up over time, where not playing, you want to play and you have to play because it's your career. You want to win games for your team. So that's the hard bit for me. And I'm always nervous going into those conversations. I'm always, make sure that you've got generally somebody with you as a witness nowadays. Sometimes you've got to have witnesses at times. It's the protocols are very different as they were, years ago. It was a much more brutal environment where people called you everything, said everything, and there's no holds barred, and you took it, and you went away and reflected yourself, and you asked questions with your family and your friends, were they right or was I wrong or however it was. Where nowadays, I think the Professional Cricket Association, a wonderful organisation that really help with lifestyle advisors for players. I think agents now that have come into the game a lot more are always there for the players' benefits, wellness, and needs. But we had no social media, we had no Facebook and Instagram and TikToks. That was non-existent. It was newspapers, and it was you always knew that somebody else was going to be in the newspapers the next day. Where the barrage I see from youngsters now, the youngsters are a little bit more sensitive to compared to previous regimes, but I think the system and the lifestyle of people and the way how everybody knows whatever he's doing these days, it's unbelievable. My daughter, she was playing netball yesterday in Bristol for a club team, and she already knows who's there because she can see who's on these maps and snap maps, who's doing what and what it looks like before she even got there. So, I feel for the guys. They've got to be very careful. For me, I try and diarise everything. I use my mobile phone for everything. So what I'm doing every day is diarised. Speaking to people's diarised. For me, it has to be on an alarm on my phone. Otherwise, it's easily forgotten, sadly, for me. And my sort of a little bit of my sort of dyslexia as a kid, and I've done courses on it to help me. I've done various courses, leadership courses, and negotiation courses. I've done personal profiling courses to understand people and to look for various signs. So yeah, I've tried to always improve myself to help my coaching and develop my skills and my mindset for the game.
Oh, nice. So touching now on where you're at now with your career and the coaching side of it, how do you see the next 5, 10 years going, especially if you look at the mental health side, the mental side of the game, compared to where it is now? What can be done? You go to all these franchises, is there things in place? Or can there be things done better? What do you think, for instance, like ourselves as a foundation could do to be a better offer to players, to coaches, to teams across the world, but also to them teams, what could be done better?
Yeah, great question. I think players are really, really well looked after now with their welfare, with clubs, with the Professional Cricket Association. Really interesting that coaches are a little bit more out there now. Yes, if you're involved at a county, then I think ECB and PCA work together, especially if you're an ex-player to go with the PCA as a coach. But actually, coaches globally, I don't think there is that much help out there for them and for us. So that's really interesting because it's a high, T20 cricket, T10 cricket. It's high stress. It's high stress. It surprised me there's not more heart attacks. Actually, it really is. And in fact, I speak a little bit to Richard Bevan, who was one of the founders of the PCA and made it a really professional organisation. And Richard Bevan now he's involved with the CPL on the board,
Yeah.
but he's also, he's sort of manager or chairman of the Professional League Managers Association. So he looks after the league managers, which is really interesting as well. So for me, I think cricket needs that. I think the very good franchises, the very wealthy franchises, I think they'll have a lot more support for coaches and for players. I think the smaller franchises with less money involved, I think that's just you go in, you do your job, and you go out. And actually, managing owners is one of the biggest, toughest things in our arena because they've got massively high expectations. Someone might have low budgets compared to the rest of the world, and it's managing those guys. So that's a really interesting skill in itself. But for me, I think franchise world could definitely be looked after a lot better because it can be quite a lonely world at times for people, especially if you have 2 or 3 poor tournaments where your team just doesn't gel or you lose a lot of close games. And the margin for errors is so small. I always say this in elite sport. Look at the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup was so close. It was unbelievable from being dominant. And T20 cricket and T10 cricket's like that. You think you're there. You think
changes it.
yeah, a moment, a one bad over here or a one amazing over changes the game. And your heart rate can be going from 50 to 180 in a few balls, which is crazy. And you always searching and reflecting and searching and asking questions of your coaches, of yourself, how we get better, how we get over the line, what was good, what do we do better, whether we win or lose. So there's always adrenaline, there's always something to do, somebody to speak to. And actually the downtime, it's getting that right downtime for me. I find that sometimes the tougher bit, getting the downtime right, because you feel like you could always give more. And that's something that I've had to live with all my career. I've actually just gone, do you know what? It's down tools. It's time for relax. And I think that's where
you need an afternoon off here.
Yeah, that's where my missus is very good. Jen's very good. She's very calming. And Izzy, our daughter, as well, want to do things. So for me, the more times I can get out with the dog in the morning around the Leicestershire golf course, I live quite close to, and it's the more I can get out walking in the countryside or playing golf, getting away from cricket is a good thing for me. And I enjoy a bit of commodities and commodity trading with the contacts I've made over the years. So I enjoy that as well. So I have specific time that I just put cricket down, take a breath from it, and and just listen, close my diaries and books and whatnot, and podcasts and whatever it may be, and just actually focus on me for a little bit. Because I'm nearly 55 now, and I've got to work hard on my body. I've got to stay fitter.
Yeah.
And still be sharp when I'm throwing balls and being around guys that are hitting the ball back like bullets. So, it's really interesting. And the modern player, it's harder for them, I believe, to like the Ryder Cup lads now that they need their release, than whether they have a few drinks or a late night or go dancing or whatever they do. They've got to have a release, and it's harder for the modern player to do that because of social media.
Well, this is one thing. What I was going to touch on is obviously you've had the highs of winning T20 blasts, you've had the lows of relegation, you've had them clinch moments where you might not have just got over the line in a series and you've lost the final. I was speaking to Matt Mills about it. Was how can you obviously you need that release, so you might have had the high of winning, but then the next day or the day after, you get that sudden grounding of, well, that's done now. What's next? So how do you yourself and how do you prepare your players for
that? The highs are amazing, but for me, it's always about the journey. And yes, the highs are great, but as a coach, there's always learnings from it. There's always learnings about people, and generally you're working. If it was a county cricket, for instance, Leicestershire or whoever, you're in a, you're either at short, medium, or long term where you are on your journey. So mine was a 5-year journey, a 6-year journey to get promotion and win some white ball cricket. And you have great days and poor days. You have when you've got a lot of youngsters, you have a lot more down days than up days. In cricket especially, even as a batter, everybody wants to get 100. Every batsman wants to get 100. Now the best average 50. So even the world's best fail 50% of the time, if not more. So it's there's a lot more soul searching, learning, development than actual success. So it's very easy to get downbeat about the dark times, but actually you'll come through. There's always little wins. There's always little positives that you can keep chipping away and have your building blocks and your foundations get better. So I always, as a player and as a coach, if I had down days, then it's about the learnings. But mentally, I always like to gym and run and lift weights. That was my release. I loved, I loved running in the evenings, late nights, early mornings, getting in the gym, taking my frustration out in the gym as much as anything. Yeah, that was a real savior to me. And even at home, I've got a gym at home that myself and all the family use now, but I'm in it a bit more often. So I think that's really important for me and my mental health. Getting outside, the Lake District, try and get up to the lakes as much as I can. Walk in the Lake District at home, or get down to Norfolk, walking on the beaches down at Brancaster and Wells and Holcombe Beach and down there. I love it down there as well. So that was nice in the West Indies as well, being able to just, the evening, go to a beach or go to a nice beachside cafe and do a bit of reflection, or with our coaches, go in a different environment, getting out of that environment and go somewhere else and do some reflections and find out what worked. Do a bit of a claw, do some claw reflections. What are our challenges? What are our lessons? What are our actions? And what are our wins? So little things that we do on a regular basis to try and, keep improving. And when you see improvement, it helps your mental health.
Massively. And that's
when you don't see improvement, and that's when it's even more challenging and even tougher. That's where you need to call I think it's really important that we all have people who we trust and can confide in, and who've got wisdom to give us and support us in. I think that's really important that we all have that, because we don't all know everything. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. And try and surround yourself with good people who want the best. And it's very tough. I've been in an environment that was a toxic environment, where before I left a club, and I wasn't enjoying it because the environment was toxic and the people around me, we weren't aligned.
Yeah,
There's people wanting my job. There's people going behind my back, and it's those type of things that that frustrate you and sometimes can start to change you. And it's really important that you stay to your true self, and not get dragged into negativity. I think that's really important, to try and stay above that. And that can be hard, but actually there's always somebody there to help you.
yeah.
And I think that's my message. There's always somebody there. There's always somebody to help. There's always somebody.
And that's like what we say, especially when we go into the schools and stuff like that, is there's always someone either at the end of the phone, around the corner, in schools, in your sports clubs. Like, it's not, time is never up. That's why we call time isn't up. But also it's okay not to be okay. So it's okay not to feel okay, but don't just keep it into yourself. Speak to someone about it. I'm
Yeah.
conscious on time as well. But one last question for you. So if you could give yourself, your younger self, one bit of advice that you've learned over the last 30 years being in the industry, 40 years in the industry, what would you give it? What would it be?
One bit of advice I would say is, there's going to be great days. There's going to be some tough days. The sun always shines for a new day. Focus on you and what you're going to do and your good people around you. Everybody's always going to have an opinion, but they don't know. They don't know. Only you know, and only you know, and only you know how you're feeling, and what you can do and what you can't do, and what you believe in, and what and there's always people there for you. So I think to sort of conclude is basically trust your own instincts and trust the close people around you. The rest, there's a lot of noise, and it's actually listen to the right people. So listen to the right people, forget the noise, and just try and look always at the positives. There's always positives to look at.
Perfect. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Obviously, I know you've got a pack, you've got to spend time with the missus and daughter before you shoot off on Wednesday. I wish you all the best over there. And yeah, wish you all the best for the future, and hopefully we'll speak soon again, mate.
Pleasure. Thanks, Carl. Pleasure. Thank you.
Perfect. Cheers, Paul. I'm just going to stop
Thanks.
the recording there.